Brace yourself. Get it passed up anytime now. Correct yourself. Things will never be the same in this sad, sad world. Walk around a lot a bit, trying to make the pieces fit to a puzzle with a million bits and pieces. When I'm feeling fine is when I discover that I'm afraid to blow my cover, and there's something very wrong with this. So sit back.
Hello and welcome to the first session of Introduction to Ethics. I'm Mr. Tilt with Four Corners Upper School and Southeastern University, and I'm happy that you are with us this semester. This video is going to cover the same things that we cover in class during the first day of the course. Its primary intended audience are students who are taking the class, but for whatever reason are not going to be able or were not able to be with us on the first day of class. So if you're taking the class and you're going to be there on day one, you're under no obligation to continue watching this video, though if you are interested in a sneak peek, you're welcome to stick around. I want you to think about a few questions with me, some questions of right or wrong. Is it wrong to cheat on your boyfriend or your girlfriend? And let's not overcomplicate things by trying to define what cheating is and this particular or that particular. Generally speaking, if somebody is you got a calculator out trying to figure out, does this technically count as cheating or not? The person's a cheater anyway. So just in general, let's say to be physically affectionate in a sexual or romantic way with someone other than your boyfriend or girlfriend. Is that wrong? I'm sure in class I'll get lots of responses to this, and dudes, if you're in class, the ladies are listening to how you answer this question. Let's see if we get more particular. See if some of these details can change things. Is it more wrong, less wrong, or the same if he or she has cheated on you in the past? Does that make any difference? Like, well, she did it to me as a payback. It's justice. This is what she gets. Does that change things, or is it still wrong? Or is it wrong but less? Is it more wrong, less wrong, or the same if he or she is cheating with a person of the same gender? Now we're going to have some different people with different looks on their faces in the classroom at this point, because there may be a wide range of responses to this question. Is it more wrong, less wrong, or the same if he or she has given you permission to cheat? So we've got an arrangement. It's as long as it's not in the same zip code or whatever the arrangement is, and hey, it works for us. We know what we're doing. We're 16. Does that make it different? Does that make it any better if you've got an agreement ahead of time? Is it more wrong, less wrong, or the same if you were married? Is there a difference between messing around on your junior year in high school boyfriend and cheating on a husband or wife? Is that the same, or does marriage add something to the equation, make things more complicated? Is it more wrong, less wrong, or the same if you have children together? Is a parent under a stronger obligation to be faithful to his or her partner than is somebody who doesn't have children? Do children complicate things? Is it more wrong, less wrong, or the same if he or she is cheating with your brother or sister? Oh, can you imagine? The bonds of family, blood is thicker than water, and now someone's going to come around, brother or sister's going to come around and test this on you by running around with your girl. Is that a bigger deal than just sort of everyday, ordinary cheating? How about this one? Is it more wrong, less wrong, or the same if he or she is cheating on you with their own brother or sister? Yes. If we were in class, here's now where there'd be the groans and the ews and the whatnots. Does that make a difference? My guess is that that question will get the strongest reaction out of the people in the room. My guess is also that we're not going to. We're just sort of scratching the surface and introducing ethics here today. But my guess is if I were to press someone for their reactions, oh, no, girl, gross, that's terrible. I would say, why? Why is that wrong? Why is that so wrong? Why is that worse than just everyday, ordinary cheating? My guess would be that most people wouldn't have a response with much more intellectual depth than because, ew, that's gross. Look, I'm human. I'm a product of the culture. I also find that gross. But is grossness a determinant of right and wrong? Is every behavior that I find disgusting necessarily wrong? And I think the obvious answer, if you push in, lean into that a little bit, is no. You know, so you've got a married couple. They've been married for 60 years. They're in their 80s, and they continue to have an active physical sexual life. Well, I don't know of any ethical system that would say there's anything morally wrong with a husband and a wife having consensual sex. I don't know of any system in the world that says there's anything wrong with that. And yet the visual, I'm not going to, but were I to pull out a videotape and say, hey, you can tell that I'm almost 80 years old because I referred to it as a videotape. If I were to say, look, here's some pictures, not only would I be fired and probably go to jail because of my student's age, but everybody would say, oh, gross, no, I don't want to see that. And yet, no one that I know of would ever say that that's wrong. So what's the connection between our sense of good and evil and our sense of, ew, that's gross? And is that connection necessarily reasonable? So here we are, we're studying ethics. What's ethics? Ethics is the branch of philosophy. Well, let's pause right there. What's philosophy? If you've taken my humanities course, you know exactly what philosophy is. Philosophy is a love of wisdom. We smushed together two Greek words there. Philos means love, Sophia means wisdom. Philosophy is a love of wisdom that inspires us to seek rational answers to big questions so that we might live and die well. Ethics is one form of philosophy, one branch of philosophy, specifically the branch of philosophy which explores how we make our behavioral choices, how we structure and govern our relationships, and how those choices and relationships impact the people and the world around us. Short answer, it's about right and wrong. You might say bad, you might say good and evil. Very important concepts in every human culture, and yet concepts that are defined somewhat differently in every human culture, and to be honest, somewhat differently by every human person who takes the time to try to define them. And that's a big deal, because we probably all believe that, or probably most of us believe, that everyone is entitled to his or her own opinions. Everybody has the right to form his or her own opinions. And I believe that too. I would throw in the obligation of those opinions be informed and rational, but everybody's got the right to their opinion. And yet, my opinion on ethics, it's mine, it's my personal opinion, but it's not a private thing. Because even though I live outside of work, I'm almost the most biggest hermit you have ever come in contact with. Nevertheless, I don't live in total isolation. I interact with other people. I interact with people over whom I have authority, not grand authority. I'm not the, I'm not the czar, but I run a classroom. And so if I think it's right, when a student is playing on the phone while I'm giving a lecture, if I think it's right to then take the lid off of this piping hot coffee and dump it on the student's face and then dump the rest on some other student's face just so that one knows that I mean business, well, that matters. You say, no, but that's just my opinion. That's just my personal, I got the right to my opinion. Well, maybe I do have a right to my opinion, and yet my moral opinions, my ethical opinions impact other people, because ethics is all about our choices and how those choices and how our relationships impact the people in the world around us. And every choice impacts the people in the world around us, some in huge ways and some in negligible ways, but every choice does. All right, day one, time for a quiz. You don't have to take out paper, especially if you're watching this on video. Just answer the questions in your head. Super duper, hey, hard questions. Question one, true or false? 2 + 2 = 4. It's not a trick question here. We're not playing any games with the language. And the ordinary way of speaking, 2 + 2 = 4. That is obviously true. If we were in class, of course, right now, there'd be 1 or 2 people shouting out false, because they are, comedy geniuses. But no, the answer is obviously true. Question 2. I know this was tough. Maybe the next one will be easier. Question 2. It is wrong to torture babies for fun. It is wrong to torture babies for fun. Now, and I'll probably have some people in the class going, false, false, as a joke. But if I had to take a guess, everybody sees that, and nearly every person, and hopefully every person involved with this class, every person's response in their gut level is an automatic and obvious, well, true, yeah, no, oh, God, you torture babies for fun? That's horrible. And that's a common example, sort of an ethical baseline, where it's very difficult to find anybody who would disagree with the wrongness of torturing babies for fun. Each of those questions, 2 + 2, is it wrong to torture babies for fun? Each of those questions, or I should say neither of those questions, sit in isolation. Both of those questions sort of connect and open passageways and doorways into a wider array of questions, and a wider array of knowledge, because new knowledge builds on the foundation of the old knowledge. So take the simple math fact of 2 + 2 = 4. How old are you when you learn that? Well, many kids probably learn that, or at least they memorize it. They learn to say it. You could probably do that at 3 years old. Maybe not have a full grasp exactly what it means, but you can train a 3-year-old. Let them out of their cage and ask them what's 2 + 2, and they'll say 4. Okay. But it's not long after that before somebody can learn not only to ape it, to repeat it back, but can learn to thoroughly understand it. By 5 years old, you probably fully understand what it means that 2 + 2 is 4. I've got 2 apples. I go get 2 more apples. I'm going to have 4 apples. And from that base knowledge, you now connect to a whole world of mathematical knowledge. If you understand that 2 + 2 = 4 and what it means, which you do by the time you're 5, well, then you can easily understand that 2 + 1 is 3 and 2 + 3 is 5. And in fact, once you know that 2 + 4, you know that 2 trillion plus 2 trillion is 4 trillion. The simple math question is a doorway that really opens up to the whole world of numbers. And from that point forward, you have to learn techniques for how to calculate things, but you've got the basic principle that you need to do math, even math involving gargantuan numbers like this, by the time you're 5 years old. Well, so that's the mathematical question. The ethical question: is it wrong to torture babies for fun? That also opens doors and makes connections to a wide range of related issues. And yet the connections that question makes are not as smooth and not as clear as the mathematical question. What am I talking about? Let me show you what I'm talking about. So, it's wrong to torture babies for fun. Let's say you have a seriously ill baby who desperately needs invasive medical treatment that will cause the baby intense pain. And to keep things simple, let's say that it is all but certain that without this treatment the baby will die, but that the treatment has a strong possibility of being successful. Is that wrong? Is that torture? Well, you're inflicting pain on an infant. You're inflicting pain on an infant knowing ahead of time that that's what you're going to be doing. You could say that you're inflicting pain on an infant on purpose. We'll come back to that. Well, you're inflicting pain on an infant on purpose. Well, isn't that torture? Well, what's different here is the motivation. The motivation now is not fun, but it is to save the life of the infant. And if the intensely painful procedure has a strong possibility of saving the infant's life, most people, I think, would say, okay, it sucks that we have to do this, but okay, go ahead and inflict the pain. How is it possible to intentionally inflict torturous pain on an infant and not be doing evil? Well, a little sneak preview of some of the more complicated things we're going to get into. What's being invoked here is something called the principle of double effect. So when a doctor is performing chemotherapy and radiation treatments on a baby, that inflict a great amount of pain. The doctor is not intending to inflict the pain. The doctor is intending to treat the baby's illness. The doctor is intending to make the baby healthy. The doctor is allowing, which is a good. Making babies healthy is good. The doctor is allowing the evil of inflicting torturous pain without willing the evil. The doctor could perform chemotherapy and radiation without inflicting pain. The doctor would. But the good of health and extending the life of the baby tells the doctor that the doctor can allow the evil of the suffering of the child to take place without therefore willing the suffering of the child. So, chemotherapy on babies is not the same as torturing babies for fun. How about circumcision? Circumcision is a sacred ritual in the faith of the Jewish people. On the 8th day, a male child is supposed to undergo circumcision. That's believed to be a sign of the covenant of the God of Israel with the Jewish people. It's commanded directly in the Bible. It's the medically unnecessary genital mutilation of an infant who cannot consent, and in fact does not consent. If it were possible to translate the cries that this child is seconds away from letting out into English, I think a good translation would be, stop, don't, no, I do not consent to having the foreskin of my penis cut off. And yet, it's been practiced for thousands abuse. And it is a sacred ritual to, and particularly a sacred ritual of a minority religious population who has been through enough crap from others over the centuries. Is it right? Is it right to cut off the foreskin of the penis of an infant child? Now, if somebody is a person of faith and actually believes that this is the command of God, I suppose the question is therefore settled. But for others looking in, you might say, well, hang on, it's part of their culture, it's part of their faith tradition. It causes pain on the infant, unnecessary pain. It's not like chemotherapy, but it doesn't cause much lasting damage. There aren't really major health repercussions to not having a foreskin on one's penis, and it. The baby doesn't remember. We're not looking at traumatizing the infant. The infant will have no memory of this taking place. So many people will say, the religious circumcision of a male child, the barbaric practice known as female circumcision is something totally different. The portions of the female genitalia that are mutilated in that practice do leave a clear lasting harm. But in male circumcision as practiced by Jewish people, many say there's not really any lasting harm. The baby doesn't remember it. It's part of their religious faith tradition. If I were making up my own religious faith tradition right now, I might not. I might keep the scissors and the peni on opposite sides of the room. But who am I to judge? Though there are others that object to the practice and say, I know it's an ancient tradition, but that still doesn't make it right. Though even those that I've heard from who say that sorry, I don't care, you've been doing it for 3,000 years. Circumcision is 4,000 years. Circumcision is wrong. Even those folks probably wouldn't put it at the same level of wrong. Technical ethical term for you there, wrong, as torturing babies for fun. Gosh, day one, and this stuff is already, it's all super duper clear cut simple, right? How about spanking? Corporal punishment of children. Lots of different opinions on this. And many of those opinions are culturally conditioned. I can't tell you how many times I've heard students talk about how in their particular culture it's the norm for this, that, or the other thing. I'm not the one to repeat those stereotypes, but I hear them all the time. Many people think that a moderate use of physical force that doesn't produce lasting physical damage sometimes, that's just the only way. That's the only way kids are going to learn. You can't always reason with kids. I can't always reason with you. You can't always reason with me. People aren't always reasonable. But little kids, sometimes, the powers of reason just aren't there, and yet the lessons have to be learned. And so, boom, spanking. And to be honest with you, that's been the practice of just about everybody who's ever lived. It's only in recent generations that anyone's really called that into practice. Spare the rod, spoil the child. But then you have others who say, no, look, you react to children's misbehavior with violence. Well, all you're doing is, beside from shattering their trust in you, and beside traumatizing them, all you're doing is reinforcing in them that violence is an appropriate reaction to things that piss me off. Who's right in that discussion? Is it, this child is, of course, this isn't real, it's from a movie or something, but this child pain is being inflicted on a child on purpose in order to teach that child a lesson. Is that morally acceptable? So at the end of the day, some will say yes, some will say no. But again, I think even those who say no that spanking is not right, is not good, should not be done, would still be able to say, yeah, but I understand where people get the idea, and though I don't agree with it, it doesn't make them monsters. It's not the same as the predatory pervert who steals children and hurts them just for his own pleasure. Lots of fun things. Let's keep taking these ethical questions and the complexities of them for a spin. What I want to walk you through now, I want to give you an example of how sometimes within a culture, within our culture, within any culture, there can be ethical principles that we believe in and try to live by that don't always mix together well. You know, if I drink my coffee black, but I have put milk, I have put cream in that, and if I decided I wanted to do that, that would mix together well. If I pulled out mayonnaise, put that, I don't know why that's a sound, but put the mayonnaise in the coffee, that's not going to mix together well. Even though I like coffee and in other circumstances I like mayonnaise, ethics can be like that. So let's take this for a spin, see some examples. So it's widely held in our culture that it's wrong to force someone to accept your religious beliefs or force him to violate his or her own religious beliefs. Most of us believe in the freedom of religion, and that you should is kind of hands off other people's religious beliefs, and maybe you can argue about it with some people. Maybe some people try to convert other people through conversation, through reasoning. That happens a lot. There are prominent faith groups in our country that will people come knocking on the door and want to talk to you. Latter-day Saints send folks around a lot. Jehovah's Witnesses send folks around a lot. None of them have guns pointed at you. The elder from the local Mormon church knocks on the door and wants to talk to you about the Book of Mormon. He's not going to pull out a piece and say, now you are gonna become a Latter-day Saint or else, because we don't believe in forcing religion on people in the tree, by and large. It's traditionally been held that sexual and romantic relationships between persons of the same sex are morally wrong. This opinion has changed rapidly in recent decades, and discrimination based on sexual orientation is widely held to be immoral. Yet many in our culture continue to hold the traditional view regarding sexual relations, in large part because of their religious beliefs. So, we've got the belief that we shouldn't force religion on people or force them to violate their religious beliefs. And we've got the belief that we should not discriminate on people based on their sexual preference or sexual identity. Right? You won't find 100% approval of those two things in our culture, but I think by and large in our culture, we accept those two principles. What happens when those two principles start behaving like coffee and mayonnaise? So, church down the road holds to the traditional view, marriage between a man and a woman, that sex between people of the same sex is wrong. So should that church be allowed to refuse to conduct gay weddings? And I suspect most of my students are going to say whatever they feel about the issue of same-sex marriage. Most of my students are probably going to say, yeah, the church should be allowed to refuse to do that because it's their church. You don't like what they believe, don't go to their church. Because remember, they don't put a gun to your head and say you got to come to church. So I think most of us will respect that within the churches themselves that hold this traditional position, that they can't be forced to change the position. Should a baker be allowed to refuse to make a cake for a gay wedding because that baker holds to the traditional view? that's a real issue. It's a real controversy that has gone to the courts in this case. And my guess is in class, students are going to be more split. My guess is near 100% will say, yeah, the church should be able to refuse if that's what or the synagogue or the mosque or the temple should be able to refuse if that's their faith. The baker in his own bake shop, yet doing business as part of the public, should the baker be able to discriminate in essence? How about the hotel? Should a hotel be allowed to refuse to house a gay couple? My guess is more people will say no to this than said no to this. More people say no to the hotel question than the cake question. Probably not entirely certain why they said no to one and yes to the other. Should a doctor be allowed to refuse to treat a gay person? And here I would imagine we'd be back to near universal. The students are probably thinking, no, of course not. And, well, I don't believe in that. Who the hell asked you anything? It's open heart surgery time. That's all you need to worry about. To refuse life-saving treatment to someone because you don't approve of, who shares the other half of the bed is, I think most would say, well, that's abominable. That should not be allowed. These are the kinds of things we look at in this course. How do we balance conflicting values? The value of religious freedom versus the value of non-discrimination against sexual minorities. How do we balance that? How do we live in peace with people with different moral standards? When do we force compliance with our moral standards? And who makes that decision? Morally good and legal are not necessarily equivalent terms. Most people do not want to see everything that they consider to be immoral made illegal. Most people would probably say that it is not morally right to sexually fantasize about, to intentionally sexually fantasize about your best friend's girlfriend. That's wrong. I don't think anybody thinks that the police should be kicking in your door and trying to find out if that's something that you've been up to. Conflicting moral values. That causes more complications in this life than just about anything else. These folks have conflicting moral values. He does not think it's okay to cheat on your spouse. She thinks it is okay to cheat on your spouse, and now they're conflicting moral values. They entered in did I say that backwards? He thinks it's wrong. She didn't think it was wrong, so he walks in on her actually in the process of doing it. Well, having tried to build a relationship together with those conflicting values has now caused them both harm, suffering, and misery. The most divisive and controversial ethical issue of my entire life and beyond, so of the last 50 years, is the question of abortion. As I record this video, it's still been less than a year since the United States Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, the 1973 Supreme Court decision that said that no state can prohibit abortion. There's complexities in there and whatnot, but that was overturned in 2022. And everybody said, okay, we've all changed our mind now. No, it remains probably the most divisive moral question in the United States. And it boils down to conflicting values. It boils down to there being two legitimate goods that are in conflict, in tension with one another. Right? So the right of a woman to determine what will and will not be done with her body is a good. I don't know of anyone, no matter how anti-abortion they are, that would disagree with that. That the woman's sovereignty over her own bodily integrity is sacrosanct. That's a good. The life of the human fetus, an unborn, biologically human living being, is good. I don't know anyone who denies that. I don't know. The most pro-choice people I've ever spoken to are not setting the value of fetal life at zero, just as the most pro-life people I've ever spoken to are not setting the value of female sovereignty over her own body at zero. Two goods. And yet, in the case of a pregnancy that's not wanted, those two legitimate goods are now in conflict. One cannot choose both of those goods at the same time. That's a source of a great bit of moral controversy, disagreement. It's rare. There are monsters out there. There have been Ted Bundys and Jeffrey Dahmers, but most people aren't Ted Bundys and Jeffrey Dahmers. And most of our ethical disagreements with people are not disagreements with monsters who want to make the world worse. It may be that they advocate positions that, in fact, do make the world worse, but that's not what they're trying to do, and that's not what they think they're doing. Most of our disagreements are with good and honest people who are assigning different relative values to multiple things that are all legitimately good, but that cannot mix well together, like mayonnaise and coffee. This is not going to be like the toothpaste, coffee grounds, bread taco video from my humanities class. I'm not at the end going to open this up and show you I'm actually drinking mayonnaise and coffee. How could you ever take me seriously as anything other than a monster if I were drinking mayonnaise and coffee? You notice something about our question earlier. 2 + 2 is 4, and is it wrong to torture babies for fun? There's a key difference between those two questions. With is 2 + 2 4? With that question, if I encounter someone who says no, I know exactly how to demonstrate definitively that that person is wrong. I know how to change that person's mind if that person is in any way a rational actor. I say, look, there's 2 rhinos. There's 2 more rhinos. Count them up. There are 4 rhinos. It's true. 2 + 2 is 4, always and everywhere, and I can demonstrate that concretely and with no room for reasonable disagreement. So long as we mean the same thing when we use the words 2 and plus and equal and 4, the answer is 4, always, everywhere, allowing for no exceptions. If I were to encounter a person who disagreed with me on torturing babies for fun, if I were to encounter a person who says, no, there's nothing wrong with that, each their own, how would I change that person's mind? How would I demonstrate to that person was wrong? I am disgusted by that person's opinion. I'm shocked at that person's opinion. I, like you, I'm sure, feel like, well, here's a person who says, yes, it's okay to torture babies for fun. That's a person who should be disqualified from participating in any further human conversations on ethics. That person's got an opinion that doesn't count. Right there with you. Why? Why is that person wrong? Because it feels bad to me? Is that really the standard of ethics? What feels bad to me? Hope not. Hope it's something more firm than that. We need for morality, for good and evil to be real and objective the same way math is. We need to be able to say you may not torture babies because it is wrong, the same way we can say 2 + 2 is 4 because it is 4. But you'll find that, despite the fact that we need that, the universe hasn't been especially accommodating and providing us so clearly with what we need. So that's one of the major themes that we'll discuss in this course. Is good and evil, right and wrong? Is that a question of fact, of truth, or is it more of an opinion? To me, it feels like a fact that greatest rock band of all time is Nirvana, but at the end of the day, I know it's an opinion. It's not a fact. As much as I feel it's a fact, I feel it's wrong to torture babies. I feel like that's a fact, but is it? Is it? That's one of the important things that we will be exploring. So let me introduce who it is you're stuck with in this class. My name is Mr. Jeff Childers. I'm a 43-year-old native of Joliet, Illinois. Graduated from Minooka High School in Illinois in 1997. Have a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy from Conception Seminary College in Missouri, and a Master of Arts in Theology from St. Meinrad Seminary in Indiana. I've been a teacher. I started teaching as a sort of a midlife career shift. I've been teaching since 2018. After one semester of substitute teaching in Illinois, I came here to Four Corners Upper School in 2018. I have taught geography, world history, U.S. government, and currently I teach Introduction to the Humanities, which is, that course is my baby, ACE Classical Studies, and starting right this second, Introduction to Ethics. I'm also an adjunct professor of theology for Southeastern University, pretty much today. This course is a dual enrollment course. You're receiving credit. You are taking this course with Southeastern University, even though the course meets here on campus at Four Corners. Southeastern was founded in 1935. It offers 55 bachelor's degrees, 16 master's degrees, and 2 doctorate degrees. The school is affiliated with the Christian denomination, the Assemblies of God, and it is accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. Southeastern has 50 extension sites, including Four Corners Upper School in 29 states. So, taking this course, you're going to receive 1 semester of high school credit, and you'll also receive 3 college credits. You receive 6 college credits if this course is paired with the Music Appreciation Dual Enrollment course from Southeastern, which is the track many of you are on. If you're taking my course in August, many of you will switch in January to Music Appreciation. If you're taking my course in January, many of you are switching out of Music Appreciation and into this course. So this course gives you 3 college credits. The 2 together give you 6 college credits. Let's talk a bit about what college credit means. A typical 4-year degree, the bachelor's degree, requires 120 credits. You'll find slight variation on that number from school to school, but only very slight variation, because a bachelor's degree from this school needs to mean pretty much the same thing as a bachelor's degree from that one, or that one. If I open up a college and I say, I'll give you a college degree, it's only going to cost you 1 credit. I get a lot of people enrolling, but other schools are going to look at me and say, well, that degree is not worth the paper it's printed on. So a typical bachelor's degree requires 120 credits. The cost for a college education varies greatly from school to school. I did this research in May of 2023. As of May 2023, if you go to the Community College Valencia, that's a favorite destination of many of our graduates. You go to Valencia, it's going to cost $112 per credit, and most courses like this one are going to be 3 credits. UCF, $212 a credit. University of Southern Florida, $574 a credit. If you were going to Conception Seminary College, I would be very surprised if you are, but that's where I went. If you're going to Conception Seminary College, the current cost for courses is $832 per credit. Southeastern, so this course, if you took it down the road instead of here at Four Corners, this course at Southeastern, $1,268, not for the course, $1,268 per credit. That's $1,268 times 3, and if you were taking a course at Harvard, it would be $1,641 per credit, and yet the special bargain price, your cost for taking this course as part of the dual enrollment program at Four Corners Upper School is $0.00. No dollars, totally free. A savings of hundreds and hundreds of dollars and of months of your time. Why is that such a savings? Well, it's because this is an accredited college course, and what that means is that this course, once you successfully complete it, will transfer to any university. You graduate high school, you take this with you wherever you go. And if you take only this course, you got the 3 college credits, well, now you don't need 120 credits to graduate, you need 117. And if you took dual enrollment music appreciation, you don't need 120 credits, you need 114. And there are plenty of other opportunities. We are rapidly expanding our college credit offerings here at Four Corners between the ACE Cambridge courses, like my classical studies course, dual enrollment with Southeastern University, like this course in music appreciation, dual enrollment with Embry-Riddle, like several new courses also launching, and we're expanding more and more. So this is a great opportunity for you. Education is an intrinsic good. You don't do it because of the good things you get from it. You do it because it's good in itself. Nevertheless, it is also instrumentally good. There are also good things that come to you from doing it. Some things to be aware of, especially if this is your first college-level course. The course is governed by the academic policies of Southeastern University. A couple things to be aware of. What that means. One is that deadlines are real. Late work is accepted with a penalty for 7 days, after which it is not accepted. So if you're used to the far more lenient approach we have to deadlines in our high school courses, you've got to understand that it's not going to be the case in this class or in any of the dual enrollment college courses. And please don't test us on this. We have very, very little wiggle room here. Look, we're not monsters. In the case of genuine emergencies and things like that, I will work with you. If you've taken my classes before, you know that I'm only a monster if you are playing on your phone or listening to headphones while I'm teaching. That I will accommodate you as best I can for the difficult things that happen in life, but outside of emergencies, please hear this, and please know that every word in this sentence means what it sounds like it means. Deadlines in this course are real. Late work will be accepted with a penalty for 7 days, after which it cannot, I am not allowed to accept it. Schoolwork outside of class time is to be expected as the norm. So there will be readings that need to be completed and not an overwhelming amount of written work. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes. In college courses, you cannot expect to have hours and hours of open class time to sit there and do your work in class. You need to be prepared for the fact that schoolwork outside of class time is to be expected as the norm. You'll see the term module used in this class. That's the terminology that Southeastern uses. It just means units of study within a class. So instead of talking about this is Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, we have Module 1, Module 2, Module 3. I will make a concerted effort to give you one in-class workday per module, except for Module 6, which is longer, and you'll have more in-class workdays there. Again, I am all about your success, but I can't promise you that 1 day per module is going to be sufficient to finish all your reading and do everything you need to do. In fact, for most students, I can promise you that won't be sufficient. The goal is not to provide you enough time in class. The goal is to teach you in class. So you need to be prepared to work outside of the course. And though I will provide some of that in-class time for you, you've got to understand, we deal with things that they don't deal with on a college campus. On a college campus, we've got FSA testing. Nobody goes to class for 6 weeks straight. Well, they don't have that. I'm exaggerating, but we might have that. And so if we lose days due to testing, if we lose days due to hurricanes and things like that, I got to tell you, the first thing to be ripped off, to be crossed off the list, is those in-class work days. But I will do my best to provide them for you at least 1 day per module most of the time. I've been waiting. Here's something I've been wishing. If you know me, you know this. I've been looking forward to the day I could say this for 5 years. Cheating and plagiarism, including the use of artificial intelligence to compose work, will result in automatic failure of the course. That's some good mayonnaise and coffee. Another thing to be aware of, since it's a college course, is that if you're on an individual education plan, an IEP, or if you are a student who's part of the ESOL program, and you're normally given certain accommodations, extended deadlines and things like that, those don't necessarily apply. In fact, most of those will not apply in this course. Come talk to me if you're concerned. I'm here for your success, but you should be aware that if usually I've got unlimited time on my work, so I won't even start it until 8 weeks after it was due. It's not gonna work. Hey, that doesn't help you. That doesn't matter, but it's not going to work in this course. Okay, here's an important thing to be aware of. Southeastern University is affiliated with the Assemblies of God, which is an evangelical Protestant Christian denomination. Introduction to Ethics is classified as a theology course by the university. And the textbooks that you're going to be reading, such as main textbook is Moral Choices, an Introduction to Ethics by Scott Ray. And then there are others, Subversive Sabbath by A.J. Swoboda, Leisure, the Basis of Culture by Joseph Pieper. I think I got that one in there. And The Myth of Equality by the author, Ken Witzma. The required textbooks from the course are all written from an explicitly Christian perspective. And these texts presume things such as that Christianity is the true faith and that the Bible is divinely inspired and authoritative. Those are the written texts that you'll be reading. Here at Four Corners, we are a public charter school. And so this course will be taught, despite the explicitly Christian perspective of the text that you're reading, the course will be taught from a religiously neutral perspective. And what that means is that all religious beliefs, including the lack of religious belief, will be respected. But no religious belief will be endorsed. When we encounter the Christian perspectives of the authors of our textbooks, Those perspectives will be treated as one group of perspectives among many. Biblical and other religious arguments will be explored for their historical and cultural significance, but ultimately, in class, those arguments will be judged by their own rational merits, which means students are free to challenge the position of the textbook. Students are expected to understand the Christian position of the authors, but you're not expected to accept those positions. And students yourselves are free but never required to speak of your own religious beliefs or lack of belief whenever that is relevant. So, if you've been in public schools or public charter schools all your life, that may be a new experience. Like we're reading explicitly religious texts in this course. So one, it's going to be okay. All right, this is not. I wouldn't allow you to be, flagrantly indoctrinated. I know. I have a good idea how to strike a balance here and to ensure that all perspectives are treated with respect in this course. I'll tell you. So what does that say about me and my religious background? Well, if you've taken my classes before, you're familiar with the phrase "ask me after you graduate." I've long had a strong academic, scholarly interest in religion in general and specific religious traditions because of their important impact on human culture and society. And I have, that's why I did graduate work in theology. I've got a master's degree in theology. And I've got a strong respect for the role that religion plays in human lives and in cultures. As for, am I a person of religious faith? Do I practice a particular faith? That's where the "ask me after you graduate" comes in. It's important to me in all my classes that the main purpose of education, in my opinion, is for students to have space to develop their own worldviews, their own ideas. Reasoned ideas, informed ideas is not a place to go and just sit and make stuff up. But this education is not about what I think. It's about what you think. And because of the power differential in the teacher-student scenario, and because the vast majority of my students are not quite yet legal adults, that's always been my response. Ask me after you graduate. I won't speak to whether I do or don't have religious faith or practice religion, so that you know where my possible biases may lie, and so that you know that I do know what I'm talking about halfway when it comes to this course. From the perspective of culture and family history and tradition, I come from a culturally Christian background. My parents are both Christians of different denominations. My mother's background was a Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saint. My dad grew up in the Churches of Christ and Stone Campbell Restoration movement. But I'll tell you, religion was not really a big deal in my house growing up. My father only went to church on occasion. Was a Christian, but it just wasn't really a big part of his identity until very late in life. And my mother probably hadn't been to church a single time in my life. I did from time to time. In fact, I did quite frequently as a little kid. I did go to church with my grandparents, so I do sort of speak the language of Christianity and can sort of help you interpret Christianese language when you find it in the textbooks that you are reading. This course will include frank discussion of just about every aspect of human behavior and interaction from a variety of perspectives. No topic is off limits. Topics will include some pretty controversial issues. including some which may make you feel uncomfortable at times. You'll encounter perspectives which you find disagreeable or even offensive. Class conversations will include discussions of violence, suicide, beginning and end-of-life issues, religion, politics, race, sexual behavior, sexual and gender identity, immigration, and a lot more. You're going to be you'll be totally free. If you were looking at the slide, look, you're totally free with an asterisk. You're free but never required to publicly state your own opinions on a given issue. But you will not be excused from hearing a perspective that makes you uncomfortable. And again, I'm not a monster, so if there's an extreme scenario, if you're God forbid you're actively grieving someone who committed suicide and tomorrow's topic is suicide, yes, I will let you skip. But if it's just I don't want to talk about sex stuff, or I don't want to talk about religious stuff, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to talk about that, well, you make that decision now. My hope is that you'll push through that, challenge yourself, because both your life and the world is not made any better by people closing themselves off from other people's perspectives. However, especially since most of my students are not yet legally adults, you do have certain rights here, but you've got to exercise them right away. I hope the number of students in this class on day one is the same as the number of students in this class at the end, but if you're not comfortable with the notion that you're not going to be excused from being part of conversations involving topics and perspectives that make you uncomfortable, you will need to consider a different course. I hope you don't make that choice. And come talk to me first. Don't just, I'm quitting. I suck so bad. No, but you're right. You have the right to suck so bad. All right. So totally free to express your mind. So no limitations whatsoever. Not quite. Limitations, but I think you'll see that these are reason limitations. You may, when relevant, express the opinion that certain behaviors are morally wrong. You may not express the opinion that any persons are of any less value or should be entitled to any fewer rights based on any component of their identity, whether it be race, nationality, gender, sexuality, religion, country of origin, even if there is a real or perceived connection between that component of identity and behaviors of which you don't approve. You may not advocate violence against any real persons except as a response to real or potential violence, as in discussions of war and capital punishment. You see what I'm saying? You can't respond and I can't see your faces. So, all right. So you're gonna, when we're talking about sexual ethics, you're gonna have in the same class, you're gonna have a student that thinks that that same-sex relationships are always wrong, and student who thinks that they're perfectly morally acceptable, and probably also gay students altogether in the same class. If you are free to express that opinion when it's relevant, if that's the topic of discussion and you hold to a more traditional, one man, one woman kind of deal, you're not being silenced. That perspective is welcome, and you'll find that perspective reflected in the evangelical Christian authors that we're reading. So you can speak your opinion about behaviors, but you're not going to say that, not going to be able to say that, gay people are of any less value, of any less dignity, entitled to any less rights, because it's an important current controversy. So we will treat the topic of gay marriage, whether there's a right to same-sex marriage, we will treat that question as still open for discussion. But if you're not going to advocate for discrimination of basic human rights against anybody, or say that anybody is any less valuable, even if you don't approve of their behaviors. Keep in mind, we're almost done. Keep in mind that in many of the topics that we're talking about, hit on areas that connect very deeply to some of your fellow students' sense of identity. And this is going to be especially true when we talk about race, when we talk about immigration, and also we talk about gender and sexuality, and anytime we talk about religion. Those are all sensitive areas. I don't anticipate anyone, being blatantly, feeling welcome to be blatantly racist, the way some people still seem to feel welcome to be blatantly, homophobic or anti-trans in their language. And again, you can argue for your position on the morality of behaviors, but when we're doing that, you want to do so respectfully in a way that honors the fact that the challenges that you're issuing touch on your fellow students' sense of identity, right? So be thought. I don't say be cautious. I don't want you to be afraid to speak. The open conversations in this class are going to be phenomenal. I just know it. But be aware of that in the way that you speak. When it comes to religious stuff. So look, if you're from a Christian faith background and it might be refreshing to you. Well, we're going to read all these books written by Christians, and finally somebody's going to be saying what is going to be viewing the world the way I view the world, and all that's great. You might not be used to being in an environment where someone can say, the Bible says this, and here's why I disagree with that. But your fellow students are free to do that. So what I'm asking is, if you're speaking about something that touches on religion, just be aware that somebody's religious faith, it might be a core element of their identity. Doesn't mean you can't say your piece. Okay, but just be respectful of that. Boy, I find a way to make everything I say take 10 times longer than it needs to say, don't I? What's the ethics of that? What's the ethics of going on and on and on and on and never finishing up? Classwork will consist of interactive discussion board posts, short quizzes on course readings, a couple of, I didn't put it on the list, a couple of written assignments that aren't especially in-depth, one project that is more in-depth. You'll have multiple options. We'll talk more about that, I don't know, next week or something. One of the options involves conducting an interview with a community leader. You could choose to go a research paper route. You could choose to preside over a symposium, class presentation route. At the heart of the course, and this is what I'm looking forward to the most, at the heart of the course, we do this during the 6th module, the Applied Ethics module. It's a series of student-led roundtable discussions on the following topics: immigration and migrant rights, abortion, gender identity and transgender rights, and other gender minorities, non-binary folk, and the like. Sex work, that's circulating prostitution, porn acting, what's the only whatever's, OnlyFans. Animal rights, homosexuality and gay rights, gun rights and gun control. Is religion good for society? Systemic racism, environmental ethics, capital punishment, drug and alcohol use, social media ethics, and war. The topics that are in white print on your screen, every class will conduct roundtable discussions on those 5 topics. Every class will also choose 3 more topics. Choose from this list, or if you can think of other topics, you can raise those suggestions to me. More details on this to come. We will occasionally videotape our classes. When we do, videos will only be shared with other students. If you've taken my courses before, you're familiar with this. I have been filming since we went into COVID quarantine in 2020. Any videos featuring students under the age of 18 will be unlisted, which means that viewers need the exact link to access them. Some guy, 40-year-old guy sitting in his mom's basement typing in high school girls, Florida. You're not coming up on the screen. How frequently will I record in this class? I haven't decided yet. I want, because here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I want you to feel as safe and as free as possible to discuss these issues in depth. And I am afraid that having a camera in your face all the time will make that more difficult for you. So we will record sometimes. I'm not sure how often. And other times I will just produce videos like this, which means it's really important for you to be in class. Because if you miss class and you're stuck watching the video, it's you listen to me nonstop, no one but me, and you miss out on all the student discussion. I am super duper major league stoked that you are with us this year. The end.
A bit, trying to make the pieces fit to a puzzle with a million bits and pieces. When I'm feeling fine is when I discover that I'm afraid to blow my cover, and there's something very wrong with this. So slip back in your hole, or get back in your cave. If I'm going down, I'm taking someone with me.